My name is Maya Thompson. I was 16 when my mom threw me out with nothing but a trash bag and a belly full of fear. The door slammed behind me with a sound I can still hear, sharp, final like a gunshot. I flinched, my fingers curled tighter around the plastic bag handles, cutting into my palms. The porch light blinked off a second later, leaving me in the dark like I'd never existed. "You've ruined this family," my mother hissed, just before she disappeared behind the door. Her voice was ice, not anger, something colder. Disgust, like I'd become something filthy, something she needed to scrub out of her perfect life. I stood there frozen just for a second, waiting for the knob to turn, for her face to reappear, softer this time, maybe with tears. I was still her daughter. She had to come back, but she didn't. No one did. Not even my father, David, who stood in the hallway, arms crossed over his chest like a judge delivering a sentence. He didn't say a word. He didn't even meet my eyes. And somehow, that silence cut deeper than anything my mom, Carol, could have screamed. I looked down at the trash bag, my clothes stuffed in with no care, like I was already halfway to the dumpster, and then I looked down at my belly, still barely rounded but already the center of my universe. "Okay," I whispered, brushing a tear from my lip. "It's just us now." I stepped off the porch and into the night. The air smelled like damp grass and old pavement. Somewhere in the distance, a lawn sprinkler kicked on. I walked past houses with glowing windows and warm kitchens, families eating dinner or watching TV together. Their laughter drifted through the air like it belonged in a different world, a world I'd just been shoved out of. Every step felt heavier than the last. My legs ached. My chest felt like it was collapsing inward. I had no phone, no money, no plan. The father of my baby, Tyler, hadn't answered a single message in weeks. And my so-called best friend, Jess, stopped talking to me the day rumors hit the school. It was just me, and the little heartbeat growing inside me. I ended up on a bench near the bus stop 3 blocks away. My thighs were trembling. My hands were numb. I sank down, letting the trash bag rest beside me. My breath fogged up in the cold air. My arms wrapped around my belly. I closed my eyes. "I don't know what I'm doing," I whispered, "but I swear I'll never make you feel like this. I'll never make you feel like garbage." And that was it. That was the moment something hardened in me. A quiet, aching fire. I didn't know how I'd survive. I didn't know where I'd sleep that night. But I did know one thing. They might have thrown me out, but they hadn't broken me. And 20 years later, after everything, I stood at that same doorstep again. But this time, I was wearing a designer suit. I held the deed to the house in one hand, and when they opened the door, their faces went pale. Before the porch, before the trash bag, before the betrayal. I was just Maya Thompson. I was in 10th grade, living in a small town where everybody knew your name, your business, and how many minutes late you were to Sunday service. My family lived in a white colonial house with navy shutters, the kind people slow down to stare at in real estate listings, but inside, it was all control, pressure, and silence. My mom, Carol, ran our house like a museum, perfect and cold, not a pillow out of place, not a word wasted on feelings. Her love came in conditions like, "I'm proud of you, if you behave," or "You'll do well in life, as long as you don't embarrass us." My dad, David, was quieter, not cruel, just absent. A body in the room, but never really in it. If I got an A, he'd nod. If I cried, he'd leave. I think he thought staying out of it made him innocent. It didn't. At school, I kept my head down. I wasn't the popular girl, but I wasn't invisible either. I was just there. The kind of girl teachers liked, and classmates forgot about the second you walked past. And then there was Tyler. Tyler was everything I wasn't. Loud, charming, that kind of dangerous cute that made girls whisper in the hallways. When he smiled at me the first time in biology class, my heart practically forgot how to beat. I told myself it was harmless, just attention, just someone finally seeing me. But attention turned into tutoring sessions. Tutoring turned into late-night texts, and those turned into secrets. I didn't even realize how badly I wanted to be chosen until he chose me. We weren't careful. I know that now. But when you're 16 and desperate to feel loved, Logic isn't your strong suit. It felt exciting, rebellious, like I had a secret the world couldn't take from me. Until the second pink line appeared on the pregnancy test. I still remember the feel of that plastic stick in my hand. My fingers were ice cold. My stomach flipped like I'd swallowed a tornado. I stared at it for what felt like an hour, the world going silent around me. I was pregnant. I thought Tyler would hold my hand and tell me we'd figure it out, but when I showed him the test, he didn't say anything, just stared at it. Then at me. His face went pale. And he laughed, like I was joking. Then his expression changed. He shook his head. "This isn't mine, Maya." Just like that. One sentence and he backed away from me like I was a disease. His eyes darted around the parking lot like someone might see us talking. I remember whispering, "Tyler, it's yours." I haven't been with anyone else. But he was already gone. I never heard from him again. I spent the next week trying to breathe through the panic, hiding morning sickness, staring at myself in the mirror, wondering how I'd gotten so far from the girl who used to dream of college brochures and sketch in the margins of her notebook. And then came the night I told my parents. I wish I could say I was brave, but my hands were shaking and my voice cracked before I even got the words out. "Mom, I'm pregnant." Carol's fork froze halfway to her mouth. She didn't even look at me, just stared past me like I'd spoken in another language. And then she stood up, quietly, walked to the sink. David didn't say a word. The silence was louder than any yelling could have been. That was the beginning of the end. The last time I sat at that dinner table. The last time I was their daughter. The yelling didn't start right away. After I told them, after I said the words, "I'm pregnant," there was this awful choking silence that stretched across the dinner table like a storm cloud rolling in. My mom, Carol, didn't scream right away. She just stood at the sink, her back to me. Her fingers gripped the edge of the counter so hard I thought she might crack the granite. Her shoulders were stiff, unmoving, like she was frozen in place. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the wall clock and the hum of the fridge. David, my dad, stayed seated, didn't lift his eyes, just pushed his plate a few inches away like the food had suddenly turned his stomach. I could feel the panic rising in my chest, hot and wild. I wanted someone to say something, anything. I almost started laughing just to break the tension, but then Carol turned around. Her face wasn't twisted in rage like I expected. No, that would have made more sense. She looked disgusted. Like she couldn't believe she'd let something like me into her home. "You've ruined this family," she whispered, her voice trembling, not with sadness but venom. "Do you know what people will say about us?" My throat tightened. "Mom, I didn't do this to you." Her hand flew through the air, not to hit me but to silence me. Her palm stopped inches from my face. Her eyes were wild. "Don't. Speak." I flinched back. My knees felt weak. David stood now, but he didn't look at me. Not even once. "We warned you, Maya," he said, voice cold, distant. "We told you what would happen if you disrespected this house." "I'm your daughter," I said, my voice cracking. "I need help. Please, I don't have anyone else." Carol crossed her arms. "You made your choice. You want to play house with some dropout? Go live with him. Tyler's gone. He doesn't want anything to do with it." She scoffed. "Well, neither do we." I stood there, stunned, thinking they were just bluffing, that they'd cool off, that we'd cry and hug and figure it out together. Isn't that what parents are supposed to do? But instead, they packed a trash bag. I didn't even get to choose what went into it. A pair of jeans, some old t-shirts, a toothbrush, not even my jacket, no phone, no wallet, no goodbye. Just a cheap black trash bag shoved into my hands as Carol opened the front door. The porch light was already on. I could hear the cicadas buzzing in the trees. I could smell the faint smoke from someone's barbecue down the street. She didn't even look me in the eyes. "You need to leave," she said. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, voice breaking. She didn't answer. She just slammed the door. That sound, it split something in me. I stood there on the porch, staring at the door, hoping, praying that my dad would open it again, that he'd whisper, "Come back in." She didn't mean it. But the light turned off, and no one came. I stood in the dark holding a trash bag, 6 weeks pregnant and completely alone. My legs finally moved, one shaky step after another, carrying me down the driveway. The gravel crunched under my sneakers. The world around me felt too quiet, too normal. Inside my chest, everything was breaking. I walked until the houses started to blur, my breath catching in short gasps. I didn't know where I was going. Just away. Anywhere but there. Eventually, I found a bench near the gas station on 3rd Street. I sat down, pulled my knees to my chest, and cried until the sun came up. That night, Maya Thompson, the good girl, the rule follower, the daughter, was gone. And in her place, a fighter was born. I didn't sleep much that first night. Every time I closed my eyes on that cold metal bench outside the gas station, I kept hearing the door slam again, over and over, like it was mocking me. My back ached, my legs were cramping. The cold crept into my hoodie and settled in my bones. I curled up tighter, holding my belly, whispering to the tiny life inside me like it could hear me. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm doing, but I swear to you, I'm not giving up. At sunrise, I walked. I didn't even know where I was going. My shoes were already starting to wear through, and my trash bag was ripping at the bottom, dragging on the sidewalk. I looked like a statistic, a teenage girl who screwed up, homeless, alone, forgettable, but I wasn't. I found a women's shelter on the east side after a kind older woman at a bus stop pointed me there. St. Grace's Shelter for Women and Children? I still remember the chipped blue paint on the front steps and the sound of someone humming a gospel song inside. When the staff opened the door, I expected them to turn me away, but instead, a woman named Miss Carla looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Come on in, baby. We'll find you a bed." That was the first time in days someone treated me like I mattered. The room was small, 2 bunk beds, a cracked window that let in too much noise from the street, but it was warm. There were blankets. I cried that night, not from fear, but relief. But comfort didn't last long. The real grind started the next day. At the shelter, you had to earn your stay. I cleaned floors, folded laundry, helped serve meals to women who were barely holding it together, just like me. I learned to live off dollar menus and food bank donations. I learned to hide my belly under loose sweaters. I learned that night shift wasn't just a job title. It was a lifestyle. I got a part-time job at a 24-hour diner, Evelyn's on Main, scrubbing dishes from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I walked there and back every night, through sketchy neighborhoods, heart-pounding every time a car slowed down near me. Some nights I didn't sleep at all. Some days I cried so hard in the bathroom stall that my chest felt like it would cave in. But I kept going. Because one night, after wiping down sticky counters and counting loose change just to afford a sandwich, I came back to the shelter and sat on the edge of my cot. My hands were raw. My feet were blistered. I could barely keep my eyes open, but I looked down at my belly and said it out loud this time. I swear to you, this life will be different. I don't care how long it takes. I'll work every shift, take every hit, climb every hill. You will never feel unwanted, not like I did. That was my vow, a promise made with empty pockets, but a full heart. That promise carried me through the worst days, when people talked behind my back, when I got rejected from jobs for being too young or too pregnant, when I got kicked out of a second shelter because they didn't allow newborns, when I gave birth alone, with no one to hold my hand but still whispered, "You're not alone." I named him Noah, because it means rest and comfort, and because the moment I held him, the world finally made a little more sense. I didn't know how I'd do it, but I knew I would, and 20 years later, I did. I hadn't seen the house in years, not since the night I stood on that porch with a trash bag and a broken heart. I used to avoid that street altogether, couldn't even look at the block on Google Maps without my stomach tightening. But 20 years changes a lot, and when I saw the listing, I knew. It was fate. I was scrolling through properties with my real estate agent, Mira, looking for investment flips, and there it was. 304 Linwood Lane, my childhood home, white colonial, navy shutters, the porch light still yellow, faded but familiar. My breath caught. I clicked the listing. 4 bedrooms, new roof, priced lower than I expected. "Want to tour it?" Mira asked, sipping her iced coffee. I stared at the screen for a long moment. My throat tightened. "No," I said. "Make an offer. Full cash. No contingencies. I want it fast." It closed in 11 days. The same day I signed the paperwork, I got a message on LinkedIn of all places. Carol Thompson. It felt like someone threw ice water on my chest. I hadn't heard from her or David since the night they kicked me out. No calls, no letters, not even a half-hearted Facebook birthday post. The message said, "We just sold the house. We're in town for a few days. Thought maybe we could reconnect over lunch." No apology. No acknowledgement of what they did. Just convenience. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. But then I took a deep breath, stood up from my desk, and smoothed the lapels of my custom-tailored navy blue blazer. "Let's do lunch," I replied. 2 days later, I was standing at the front door of 304 Linwood, my Linwood, in 4-inch heels and a crisp white blouse, hair slicked back, makeup done, designer handbag in one hand, and the deed in the other. They pulled up in a rental. I saw them through the window, Carol still in pearls, David grayer, slower, but still distant behind the eyes. They walked up the steps like nothing had ever happened, like they were coming home. I waited until they knocked. Then I opened the door. Their smiles froze. Carol's eyes scanned me, then the hallway behind me. "Oh, you're here." I let a pause stretch. "Yes, I live here now." She blinked. "You bought this house?" I held up the deed. "Number U sold this house. To me." Silence. David's mouth opened, then closed. His hands were shaking slightly. Carol's face drained of color. It was the first time I'd ever seen her speechless. I stepped aside, slow and calm. "Come in if you want. I kept the dining room the same. Thought you'd like the nostalgia they walked in, looking like ghosts in a memory. The hardwood floors creaked under their feet just like they used to. But now, the creaks answered to me." Carol stopped in the hallway, running her fingers along the wall. "I never thought," she murmured. I didn't let her finish. "I know," I said quietly. "You never thought I'd make it." She turned to me. "Maya, we didn't know what to do back then." I nodded slowly. "You didn't have to know. You just had to love me." Her mouth opened again, but I didn't need to hear it. I didn't need an apology, because the house was mine. My son, Noah, was in college. My business had 10 employees. My life was whole, with or without their acceptance. I looked around the room and smiled. Funny thing about throwing someone out, you never know what they'll grow into. They stood there, still pale, still stunned. And I felt tall. For the first time in my life, I felt like everything they tried to strip from me, worth, pride, strength, I had grown it all back, bigger, stronger, and I did it without them. After they left that day, the house felt quiet in a way that wasn't empty. It was peaceful. I stood in the foyer for a long time, alone again, same spot where I once begged to stay, same walls that heard my cries. But this time, I wasn't shaking. I wasn't waiting for the door to open or for someone to come back and say, "I'm sorry, we were wrong," because I didn't need it anymore. That was the thing I hadn't expected. Closure doesn't always come from someone else's words. Sometimes it comes from standing exactly where you once broke and realizing you're no longer broken. I didn't buy the house for revenge. I bought it because I could, because I'd earned it, because I'd worked for every damn brick and window and square inch, because I wanted to stand inside that space and prove to myself that my life didn't end on that porch 20 years ago. It started there. Every job, every night Noah fell asleep in my lap while I studied for online classes. Every time I stretched a $20 bill to cover gas, diapers, and dinner. Every birthday where it was just the two of us, laughing over dollar store balloons. Every moment I thought I couldn't keep going but did anyway. Built something, and I want to tell you something. Especially if you're where I was. If you've been told you're not enough, if someone made you feel disposable, if the people who were supposed to protect you walked away when you needed them most, that is not the end of your story. I used to think being abandoned meant I wasn't worthy of love, but what I've learned is this. The people who leave you when you're most vulnerable don't define your worth. They just reveal their limits, and your strength, your future, your fire, that's yours. No one gets to take that away. Noah is 20 now. He's studying architecture. He says he wants to build homes for people who've lost theirs. I cried when he said that, not just because I'm proud, but because I know he came from nothing and turned it into purpose, just like I did. He doesn't know everything I went through yet. Not all the ugly details, but one day I'll tell him, and I'll say, "You saved me without even knowing it." I still see Carol and David sometimes. We don't talk much. I keep boundaries, for me and for Noah. They've aged. There's a softness in my father now, a kind of quiet regret he wears in the slowness of his voice. Carol pretends like she remembers things differently. It's easier for her, I think, to live in denial. And that's okay. They can carry their version. I'll carry the truth and the peace that comes with having survived it. Some people measure success by money or titles, but me, I measure it by how far I've come from that bench on 3rd Street, by the little boy who once clutched my finger in a hospital room and gave me a reason to fight, by the woman I've become, the one who shows up for herself, the one who knows her own worth, the one who walked through fire and came out holding the deed. So if you're watching this right now and your world feels like it's ending, I want you to remember something. You are not disposable. You are not ruined. You are becoming. And one day, you'll open a door, look into the faces of those who left you behind, and realize you didn't need them to find your way home. If this story hit your heart, share it. Because someone out there is where I used to be. Cold, scared, and convinced they don't matter. They need this. And if you need more stories like this, stories of grit, growth, and rising from the ashes, hit subscribe. I'm not done telling them. On the morning of my wedding, I did something I'll never forget. I handed my sister my dress, my wedding dress. She was crying, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her voice trembling. "Rhea, my luggage is gone. Everything's lost. I don't even have a dress to wear." I remember staring at her, my little sister Serena, standing in the middle of the bridal suite like a broken doll. Blonde curls half-pinned, hands shaking, panic all over her face. And in that moment, I wasn't a bride. I was a sister. So I said, "Take mine. I'll wear the backup." And just like that, I gave away the dress I'd dreamed of since I was 12. The lace I'd flown to Italy for. The one I tried on while sobbing with joy in the mirror, thinking, this is it. This is what I'll wear to marry Julian. My hands didn't shake when I handed it over. Not then. But I wish they had. I wish something in me had trembled, warned me. Instead, I felt this strange calm, like I was doing the right thing. I smiled at her. "It's just a dress," I said. "Don't worry about it." But her eyes? They shifted for just a second. The tears stopped. She blinked, nodded too quickly. "Thank you," she whispered. But it didn't sound like relief. It sounded like satisfaction. I should have noticed. The way her lips twitched at the corners, the way she didn't even ask if I was sure. She just took it. And in the background, my mother, Vivian, stood silently, hands clasped like she was watching a royal ceremony. No surprise, no concern, just that tight, smug smile she always wore when Serena got her way. Julian hadn't texted that morning, but I told myself it was nerves. He was probably getting ready, maybe writing his vows. We'd been together 6 years, and even though we fought like fire and ice, I loved him. God, I loved him, and he said he loved me. So I slipped into a backup dress. It was off-white, simple, the kind of thing you'd wear to a rehearsal dinner, not your actual wedding. But I didn't care. This wasn't about the dress. It was about love, commitment, trust. I told myself that as I walked out of the bridal suite, as I ignored the stairs, as I took the long hallway toward the ceremony room. My heels clicked on the marble floor, echoing with every step. My heart thudded in my ears. The closer I got to the doors, the quieter everything seemed. Not like anticipation, like silence before something awful. Then the doors opened, and my world shattered. There, under the floral arch, standing on my side of the altar, was Serena, in my dress, holding hands with Julian. People were smiling, some were even crying. My father, Marcus, was clapping. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Julian looked straight at me, his jaw clenched, his eyes darted, guilt flickering across his face before he turned away, as if I was just another guest, a forgotten guest. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I whispered, What is this?" No one answered, and then the officiant spoke. "We are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Serena and Julian." I swear, time stopped. The lights dimmed, the air froze. Inside, something broke, cracked, quietly but permanently. And right there, as applause erupted around me, I realized I'd given her the dress, but she'd always planned to take everything else. I didn't leave right away. I stood there, frozen in the back of that hall, surrounded by soft candlelight, rose petals, and 100 eyes that refused to meet mine. It was like I'd been dropped into someone else's dream. No, my dream, twisted into a nightmare that didn't belong to me anymore. I kept waiting for someone, anyone, to step in, to yell, "Wait, this is wrong." But no one did. Not my mother, who now had tears in her eyes like she was watching a royal wedding. Not my father, who was laughing with Serena's best friend, as if this was always the plan. And not Julian, who once kissed my forehead every night like it was sacred. Who knew how I took my coffee, how I hated thunderstorms, how I planned our honeymoon down to the playlist we'd blast in the car. He couldn't even look at me. I didn't cry. Not then. I turned around, heels clicking again, this time softer, like even the floor was trying not to disturb their perfect moment. When I got outside, the sun hit my face like it was mocking me. Birds chirped. People strolled by the venue, unaware that the woman walking past them in a cheap ivory dress was supposed to be getting married inside. I sat on a stone bench by the garden. My phone buzzed in my hand, but I didn't look at it. Probably some cousin posting a blurry Instagram story of the happy couple. Or maybe someone texting, "Sorry you had to see it that way," like there was ever a right way to see your sister marry your fiancé. My chest tightened. I couldn't stop picturing her in that dress, the one I picked with my grandmother, the one I said yes to. The delicate lace sleeves, the way it hugged at the waist, the custom embroidery that spelled a +J in tiny pearls along the hem. I felt like I was watching the highlight reel of someone else's life, the one I'd built, the one she was now living. Why? That question screamed inside me, echoing like a siren. Why would they do this? How long had this been going on? Were they laughing at me behind my back? My hands trembled as I pulled my phone out and opened my texts. I typed to Serena, "What the hell is this?" then deleted it. What was the point? She was probably sipping champagne with my ex-fiancé / her new prize, grinning like a Cheshire cat who finally caught the mouse. A soft breeze blew past, ruffling the veil I never got to wear. I realized I hadn't even pinned it in. It just sat there, like it didn't belong to me anymore either. I looked up at the sky and thought, God, if this is a joke, it's not funny, it's cruel. Then I thought about everything, the months leading up to the wedding, how Serena was always around, how Julian said he and my sister were finally getting along. I thought it was sweet. I encouraged it. I loved that they were bonding. Stupid. All the little moments came rushing back like a tsunami. Inside jokes I didn't understand. The weird tension at the rehearsal dinner. The way Vivian smiled when Serena stood beside Julian during photos. Was it always going to be this way? Was I just a placeholder? That's when I felt it. The first tear. Hot, silent, racing down my cheek before I could stop it. Not from heartbreak. Not yet. From shame. Humiliation. The kind you feel when the whole world watches your trust collapse in real time. I wasn't just the girl who got left at the altar. I was the girl who gave her sister permission to take her place. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, maybe an hour. I don't really know. Time didn't feel real. I kept staring at the garden fountain, watching the water bubble up and spill over like nothing had changed, like it hadn't just witnessed something disgusting. I finally got up. My legs felt heavy, like each step was asking, "Are you sure you want to see more?" But I had to. I needed to understand. I needed it to be a joke, or a misunderstanding, or anything but what it looked like. I walked back inside, this time through the side hallway that leads to the reception area. The music had started. Laughter floated down the corridor. Applause. The sound of champagne flutes clinking. I peeked around the corner and saw it all. Serena in my dress, now a little wrinkled from hugs and dancing. Julian beside her, grinning. Not a flicker of shame, not a single glance in my direction. A woman from Julian's side of the family, I think his aunt, called out, "They make such a stunning couple. You can just tell when something is meant to be." I froze. Meant to be? Meant to be? I started noticing details, tiny ones that made my skin crawl. The seating chart had been changed. My name was gone. The printed menus no longer had my initials on them. It said S plus J in scripted gold. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a spontaneous switch. This was planned. They had rewritten everything. My name, my place, my future. Scrubbed me out like I was a typo. And no one, not a single soul, looked shocked. They were smiling, celebrating, taking photos. They were applauding. The same people who sent me excited RSVPs, who hugged me at bridal showers, who posted selfies with captions like, "Can't wait to celebrate Aurelia and Julian," were now raising glasses to my sister and the man I loved. I stood there, hidden by the doorway, heart pounding so loud it felt like it echoed through the marble halls. My mouth was dry. I felt my hands start to tingle, like they were falling asleep. Except it wasn't sleep, it was rage and heartbreak and horror, all tangled into one unbearable knot. Then I locked eyes with my mother. She was standing at the edge of the room, perfectly composed in a lavender gown, pearls around her neck. She looked at me, straight at me. No surprise, no guilt, just that same cold smile she wore when I was 7 and Serena got the bigger birthday cake because she was younger. She raised her glass to me. Cheers, I guess. My vision blurred. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop myself from screaming. Julian's arm slid around Serena's waist. He leaned down and kissed her on the cheek while everyone laughed at something the best man said, probably about fate or soulmates or some other word that now made me nauseous. I couldn't breathe. Every part of me wanted to crash through the doors and scream, demand answers, rip off that dress and throw it in their faces. But I didn't. I turned and walked away. Because I finally understood something that chilled me to my core. They didn't just steal my wedding, they erased me, and they didn't flinch while doing it. I was the sacrifice for their so-called destiny, and the people who should have stood by me, they applauded like it was a standing ovation. But here's the thing about being erased. You can either vanish, or you can come back louder. I didn't cry on the way home. Not one tear. I sat in the back of the Uber like a statue, fingers clasped so tight in my lap that my knuckles turned white. The driver kept glancing in the rearview mirror, probably wondering why a girl in a wrinkled dress with glitter in her hair and no shoes looked like she'd just walked away from a funeral. Maybe I had. I stared out the window, watching the city blur past, my reflection bouncing back at me in the glass. My lipstick was smeared. My hair was still half-pinned, like it had given up halfway through trying. And yet, for some reason, I didn't feel broken. I felt hollow. And in that hollowness, something started to grow, a flicker, cold and quiet. I didn't know what it was at first, until I walked into my apartment and sat on the edge of my bed, still made, still waiting for a bride who never made it to the altar, and I whispered, "She told me not to tell him." That flicker turned into fire. Serena. Months ago. One blurry night. I remember it now with terrifying clarity. She'd shown up at my place late, drunk, crying, her mascara running just like it was this morning. It was a Wednesday. I'd been filming a TikTok about the bridesmaid gift boxes I was making. My phone was propped on the bookshelf recording. She barged in, collapsed on my couch, and choked out, "I did something stupid." Her words had slurred together, but they were unforgettable. "Don't tell Julian, Asal, please. It was just once. I was drunk. It was Damien. It didn't mean anything." Julian's brother. I hadn't said anything at the time. I was too stunned. I thought it was a one-time mistake, something she'd regret, something I'd take to the grave to protect her from blowing up the wedding. And she'd begged. She looked at me with those trembling lips and said, "Please, Rhea, don't ruin this for me." For her. It had never been about me. I rushed to my phone and opened the videos in my camera roll, scrolled until I found it. The footage was still there, blurry, dim, unfiltered, but her voice was clear. Her face red and blotchy, desperate. I watched it twice. Then I began digging deeper. The texts, the calls, the receipts. There was a message from Damien, time-stamped a week before the wedding. "We can't keep doing this. He'll find out. You should tell him, or I will." She never told him. Instead, she married him, and they called it destiny. I sat on the floor with my laptop, opened a blank project, and dragged in the footage. I added the screenshots, the texts, the call logs. I didn't add music. I didn't need to. The silence was louder than anything else. Then I recorded a message, just one sentence. "Since I wasn't allowed to give a speech today, here's mine." I exported the file, named it "For Everyone Who Applauded," and I didn't post it right away. That would have been emotional. Messy. I wanted them to feel exactly what I had. The confusion, the stillness, the quiet breath before the collapse. So I scheduled it. To go live 1 week from today. Same time, same hour, same date, let them have their cake, their honeymoon, their stolen fairy tale. Because exactly 7 days after they stood in front of the altar like I never existed, the truth was going to walk back in, wearing my name. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing that week. Not my best friend, not my coworkers, not even my therapist. I lived in complete silence. No posts, no texts, no updates. It was like I vanished, just like they had erased me. And that was the point. They needed to feel safe, celebrated, loved. Let them pose for their honeymoon selfies. Let them share photo dumps captioned "Forever and Always" with golden hour lighting and fake giggles. Let them soak in the illusion, because they had no idea a countdown had already started. 7 days passed, slowly, quietly. Then it was Sunday again. Same time, 3:15 p.m., exactly 1 week since my world collapsed in the middle of rose petals and applause. That morning, I woke up early. No makeup, no filter, just me and my laptop. I took a deep breath and hit publish. The video was called "Since I Wasn't Allowed to Speak at My Own Wedding." It started with Serena, sitting on my couch, drunk, messy, crying. "I slept with Damien," she says, voice shaky. "It didn't mean anything, I swear. Please don't tell Julian." Then came the texts, screenshots layered one by one like a court case. A message from Damien: "You should come clean. He deserves to know. I can't keep lying for you." A voicemail from Serena: "If this gets out, I swear to God, Rhea." Then a black screen, followed by my voice, calm even. Everyone said it was destiny. So here's what your destiny looks like behind closed doors. The video was 2 minutes and 49 seconds long. That was all it took. I didn't even need to send it directly. Someone else did that for me. A cousin, maybe. A former bridesmaid. I'll never know exactly who clicked share, but it spread like fire in dry grass. My phone lit up like it hadn't in days. 30 messages, then 60, then more. "Aunt Lena, tell me this is fake." One of Julian's groomsmen. Holy shti. A text from my mother. "Aurelia, we need to talk." "Oh, now you want to talk, Vivian." Julian called me 5 times in a row. I didn't answer. I watched his name flash and disappear like a dying light bulb. The man who couldn't even look me in the eye a week ago was now blowing up my phone like I was the only one who could save him. But I wasn't in the business of saving liars anymore. Then came the silence. Not the kind that hurts, the kind that tastes like justice. Because what they never expected was for me to speak. I wasn't supposed to say anything. I was supposed to bow out gracefully. Let Serena have the stage. Let my parents paint it as fate. Let them all pretend I was never part of the picture. But I was the one who built the frame. And now every guest who clapped during their vows. They were watching a different show entirely. People left group chats. Serena's Instagram went private. Mutual friends messaged me with thin apologies, suddenly unsure which side to stand on. And Damien? He sent me a single message. I didn't know she'd actually go through with it. "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because they weren't waiting for my forgiveness. They were bracing for the consequences. For once, the silence didn't belong to me. It belonged to them. It's been 3 months since the wedding that wasn't mine. People still ask what I'm doing now, where I am, how I'm feeling, if I'm okay. And the truth is, I don't really know what okay means anymore. But I do know this. I'm not where they left me. I moved cities. I changed my number. I started therapy. I wake up in the mornings and open my blinds all the way, letting the sun hit my face like a dare. I don't flinch anymore. It's strange, the silence now. Before, it used to crush me. but lately it feels like peace. I donated the dress, not the one Serena wore, mine, the real one. The lace was still intact, the pearl embroidery untouched, but I couldn't keep it. It wasn't a symbol of joy anymore. It was a tombstone. Let someone else have their moment in it, someone who won't have to give it away to family dressed as betrayal. As for Serena and Julian, they've gone dark, social media wiped. No more meant-to-be quotes, no more soft-lit selfies. I don't know if they're still together, and I don't care. Vivienne sent me a letter, handwritten as if that made it more sincere. Aurelia, I wish things had gone differently, but I believe everything happens for a reason. Serena has always been impulsive. You've always been strong. I hope one day you'll understand. I stopped reading. No apology. Just a justification, as if I was collateral in some divine plan. But I'm not collateral. I'm not a stepping stone. I'm not a placeholder or a plot twist in someone else's love story. I was the whole story. They just didn't know how to read me. The hardest part wasn't losing Julian. It wasn't even Serena. It was realizing how many people were willing to sit in the audience and clap while I was quietly pushed off the stage. It makes you question everything. Your memories, your worth, your reality. But here's what I learned. People can take a lot from you. Your time, your trust, even your name at the altar. But the one thing they can't take? The truth. And I didn't have to scream it. I didn't have to burn their house down. I just told the story, laid it bare, and let them unravel it themselves. I'm not interested in revenge anymore. That's too easy, too loud. I'm interested in healing, in building a life that no one can hijack or perform or twist, the kind of life that doesn't need approval or applause. Because truth doesn't need permission to exist, it just waits. And when it arrives, it's quiet, but undeniable. So no, I'm not okay. But I'm honest, I'm rebuilding, and I'm free. And if there's one thing I hope you take from all of this, it's this. Don't let anyone write you out of your own story. Speak, even if your voice shakes, even if it takes time, even if no one claps when you're done. Because the right people, the real ones, they won't need to be told who the bride was. They'll already know. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Did you stay quiet or speak your truth? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening.